Welcome to Flat Earth Debate Live. I'm your host, Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel, or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification icon, and join button if you'd like to become a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member and keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. If you would like to support the channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they are live, and there's also a PayPal, Patreon, crypto and thanks button in the info box below the video. Most importantly, if you'd like to join the discussion, simply mute the page you are currently watching, then click the link in the info box below this video to join the panel and express your views on the nature of Earth. If you do join, please don't swear. If you do, you'll be ejected, and if you are, please don't try to rejoin the stream using sock accounts. You'll be warmly welcome back on the next stream. Please also share the show on social media. Sharing the show obviously increases the live audience, but this in turn increases the chances of a more diverse panel, so please share the show on Facebook and Twitter. One last time, if you're new to the channel or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification icon and join button to keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. Now, we are joined by a whole bunch of people today. We have got Sleeping Warrior, Arwin, Brian's Logic, 10th Man, Neil, Refracted Curvature, The Adam Meakin, Eli, and a whole bunch of people in Discord, so welcome one and all.
Let the harmony begin.
Baby.
Good afternoon.
Afternoon, everyone.
Feeling extra rumpusy today, Neil?
Good morning.
I'm feeling harmonized today.
Can we stop picking on Neil, please? It's not reasonable.
Sorry, Neil. Yes, no, I do agree. We did push Neil a little bit too far yesterday. It wasn't really funny anymore at some point.
Nah,
Justice for Neil.
Oh, thank you, Michael Kahn.
Not a chance.
Michael Kahn says, first, God bless Nathan and the panel. Thank you very much indeed for the super chat. Really appreciate it. Nice start to the show. Any evidence of a physical geometric sphere edge horizon formerly known as the curve of the Earth?
Maybe real hit has some.
It's in the maths, isn't it? That's where their evidence is. It's in the maths.
They have a straight line of sight to it.
What,
Even
to the
though light is
geometric
bent.
horizon? I don't think so. Refraction.
If I don't reify it as the leading edge of a ball, I could be guilty of blasphemy and a hate crime.
You could.
Oh yeah, you definitely can't. You can't reify it as anything other than that. That's what their science is, isn't it?
We've only got one horizon, Anthony, and the horizon in there begging the question, proof of nothing, perspective hijacking Earth curve calculator, formerly reified as the physical geometric leading edge of a sphere, was debunked by the Black Swan. If the Earth was a sphere, radius 3959 miles, then every distance to that horizon, that would be the geometric sphere edge, formerly known as Earth curve, would be no more than 1.2 times the square root of the observer's height in feet. And the distance to the horizon in the Black Swan image is beyond the geometric limitations of a sphere Earth radius 3959. Therefore, the horizon is not Earth curve, and the Earth is not a sphere.
Nobody claims that the horizon is Earth curve, Nathan.
Blasphemer!
Sorry, the horizon in the begging the question, proof of nothing, perspective hijacking Earth curve calculator is the horizon and is claimed to block boats and buildings. So while you might disclaim that nobody claims the horizon's Earth curve, it's in the maths labelled Earth curve maths.
Real hit claims that the horizon is not Earth curve. Real hit claims that what we see is the refracted horizon. The geometric horizon is the non-refracted horizon.
I see. So when he was claiming that boats, buildings and the Isle of Man were physically being blocked by the physical limitation called Earth curve, labelled bulge, marked with an X as horizon in the begging the question, proof of nothing, perspective hijacking Earth curve calculations he personally used, he's now saying that horizon that blocked the Isle of Man wasn't really blocking it, it's actually refracted? Oh, how interesting. I think not.
Yeah, a refracted bulge. Sorry.
No, carry on.
Sorry, I didn't mean to cut in, Nathan. A refracted bulge. That's basically what he was claiming back in 2016. There was a bulge, yeah? The bulge used to be in the Metabunk curve calculator. They used to have the bulge.
That's Earth curve.
And he was claiming that, yeah.
So are you saying
claiming refraction?
Hold on,
a refracted bulge.
No, it was just the bulge in the maths that used to block the Isle of Man, though.
No, but he used to claim that this was blocking the other man and it was a geometric bulge. Now he's claiming that it's a refracted bulge, basically.
And which one does he use when he draws a straight line of sight to a tangent point in his maths currently there, Adam? Which one's that? Does he have a choice? Do we have more than one horizon?
If they're gonna, I'm sorry, Adam, go ahead.
No, I was saying, as far as I've seen, it's always geometric. He's drawing straight rays in Ruhif's work to geometric points. That was always the premise, because that's what he's going to do. He's going to show you how things are hidden in relation to that horizon, which is the leading edge. So much will be hidden because it is the leading edge ball. That's his claim. It's always been his claim.
Not according to what's on screen now.
Relevant to the distance.
Not according to what's on screen now.
No, but he's always on his own way. Kind of Rufy's religion, wasn't it? Because it's what's required.
Oh, I see. Oh, he might get in legal
Earth.
trouble then soon.
If they're going to battle this and call it the Battle of the Bulge, they're going to violate the general patent that's out there.
Meanwhile, as stated, we only have one horizon. As depicted in this diagram on screen now, line OH is a bent line to a horizon labelled H in this diagram. Of course, it contradicts itself in the text above, where it describes how they've drawn the line of sight to the apparent horizon with the straight line OG. So there's two things that are a bit of a problem there. One is that you've got a line of sight to G, and two, that it's an apparent horizon. So whilst justifying how the horizon we see at H, that's seeing it according to them with a bent line, has been derived from something that you also need a line of sight and must be apparent. Now this line, OG, we can't see. It isn't apparent and we don't have a line of sight to it. And that's why this diagram exists, to explain how and why we don't have a line of sight to this apparent, meaning you can see it, horizon at G that we very specifically do not see. So Ruhif himself is telling us that we do not see this apparent horizon and we do not have a line of sight to it because we can't see it. To draw a line to it. It doesn't alter that he has got a line of sight with a straight line in his diagrams, doesn't he now, Adam?
You know, before you go, Adam, I would like to point out that the Earth curve calculator is the only positive claim that does not presuppose a flat plane, and it's been debunked. So now, presuppositionally, they have a flat plane, and that's
Correct.
it.
The begging the question proof of nothing perspective hijacking Earth curve calculator may have been modelled off elevation angle measurements to Polaris to derive dual radii, or dip angle measurements by Al-Biruni utilising a flat plane, but ultimately it stands alone as a presuppositional model based on R. Now, very early on we pointed out that R is just a presupposition. Now, we can show where you've got it and where you've assumed it mathematically from, but it doesn't alter that, as John's just pointed out, does stand alone until we debunk R. And then you have to look at where you've derived it from in terms of the model rearrangement.
I've got to challenge him. It's a model based on R. R is derived off a flat plane from Polaris, isn't it? So even...
Well, they have a
Hold
problem
on,
with
I think Adam
refract-
muted himself accidentally halfway through his sentence.
No, stop talking. I'm still thinking. But surely the simple fact that to derive the R, they're going to use a flat Earth elevation angle to Polaris to derive the unit to then put into this assumption.
Correct. So once you know the origins, I think that's John's point. Once you know the origins, even though the model does stand alone, so long as you don't appreciate that it has a presuppositional R value in it, once you do realise that the presuppositional R value in the standalone model has been derived from a flat plane, all bets are off. I was going to read out Jadu's super chat, but he retracted it before I could read it out. Thank you very much for the super chat. I glanced over it, but didn't really read it. So thank you anyway. I'm sure what you had to say, which did reach the audience, required retraction.
Well, I'd like to comment I'd like to comment, if I may, just on what Adam just said. If the model is based on art from elevation angle measurements to polaris, then refraction is only a flat Earth argument, not a global argument, because refraction, according to the subject matter expert Andrew Thomas Young, was from a flat plane, later changed with geometric considerations. So they take refraction from a flat plane and then they change it.
Just
Well,
to go back to that super chat, Nate, I've got it here. It's really nice. Don't know why he's retracted it. Do you want me to read it?
Yeah, I mean, he's retracted it and he spent money to put it to us and then retracted, but it did reach the audience anyway, so I don't feel that guilty. Yes, please.
Thanks to all of you for an enjoyable drive to work each morning. Just remember, pilots are trained to account for Earth curve when their avionics fail.
Are or aren't? Or are not.
They just, I think sarcastically, just remember that pilots are trained to account for Earth curve when their avionics fail. They don't have to because it's dealing with it for them otherwise, apparently.
Right. But Earth curve for a pilot flying level is a cavity opening up ahead of their position. Well, if they head towards that, what's going to happen? Because it isn't there. There is no drop at 8 inches per mile squared. There's just a flat plane. So you've got a potential for somebody to think that the Earth's falling away at a vast rate, only to hit the ground. I think it was.
Well, what that guy's saying, I think, if he is a glober and he's not just being silly, is that when their avionics fail, they use the horizon to keep level flight.
Right.
Yeah, well, that's just begging the question. There was many planes around before there was avionics. Did they account for our rotation and the curve of the Earth back in World War II?
Up with what Nathan was teasing our pilot with the other day, and his claim, wasn't it? He was claiming that his avionics accounted for Earth rotation. I think that's probably what he means.
That's not what he claimed.
Go on.
He claimed his avionics accounted for Coriolis drift. And Chocolate and Brian both pointed out, shouldn't your avionics account for Earth turning beneath your plane? Because that's something you might have to concern yourself with if it happened. However, he was specifically saying that the plane accounts for Coriolis drift, an effect only observable from a turning reference frame, not the plane. So he's an idiot. Coincidentally, the same level of idiocy as Wolfie 6020, who fell into the exact same trap.
Recalling idiocy is fraught with error.
Oh, okay. I'll take it back if you can.
I keep hoping that Mr. Pilot will come and join us and tell us all about his instrumentation that accounts for illusions seen from the ground. I would love that. I mean, Mr. Pilot, if you're listening, come and share that with us, please.
But I've got to put my hand up then. Yeah, I got it wrong, didn't I? Why? I'll tell you why. Because it's so stupid what he said. My brain wouldn't let it. I've got to be accounting for something, but not for something that I don't need to account for. So apologies, yeah.
It's an admirable way of demonstrating
the arguments.
Go on, sorry, John.
I was going to say that's what's happened is the arguments from the anti-flat earthers have gotten so stupid that, like, even when we joke around about it, it could be one of their responses they come back with. They've fallen so far into delusion and ignorance.
But right, we played it on yesterday's show at the end of it, and it was on QE's Tuesday live show. But QE leading them down a path of getting them to declare that the plane flies backwards after it leaves the ground. Because that's the kind of anti-flat Earth nonsense that you need to adhere to when Earth's claimed to turn underneath an aeroplane. And that is precisely what it is claimed to do. Just doesn't have any manifest thing that you could observe, i.e. the flight time being shortened, which would be the natural consequence of Earth turning beneath aeroplanes, as is claimed to do. Now, if you know that it doesn't do that, and we point that out, you've got to do something. And what they do is lead you down a path of nonsense that is against the globe rhetoric and ends up with planes flying backwards. Or, worse still, if you're Simon Dan, telling us how the globe's claim of 2 reference frames is ruined.
Wait a second. Did the Adam Meekin just say that it was so stupid that he got it wrong?
No,
Yeah.
not exactly. He's saying that their double-speak contradiction is so ludicrous that in terms of cognition, he couldn't keep up with it to process the incorrect version they were asserting. He couldn't memorise that because it's ludicrous. So he's memorised the only natural consequence his brain can function to cope with, which is the consequence we point out doesn't happen. So for Adam's brain, it goes, he's got to be saying that he's accounting for Earth turn underneath, which also doesn't happen. No. He's actually saying he accounts for something you would only observe from the ground as you watch something in the air seeming to do something it isn't really doing. That's what he's saying he's accounting for, which is so off-the-wall crazy, but simultaneously fairly typical anti-flat Earth rhetoric, right?
Syntax error.
Oh, just bullshit overload, Neil, isn't it? I just couldn't cope with that much crap at one time.
Could I just point out that
derpity derp. Sorry, bro.
No worries, Chocolate, no worries. Could I just point out that Ruhif claims that we're all naive, yet that's exactly the claim that Ruhif makes.
Yeah, he's full of projection, is Ruhif. But another shout out to Jardu for another $20. Another super chat. I'm going to see if I can read this one before it gets deleted. Hi guys, sarcastic. Go at your pilot guy. Hold on. Hi guys, sarcastic. Go at your pilot guy. I have 10 thumbs. Accidentally retracted my post. I think I'm keeping up with this okay. When the avionics fails, the poor old flight engineer will be looking through the manual to see how to account for spin/curve. Right. No, they won't. Because they don't, and they're not trained to. Which surprises me when pilots come here and start to argue against it, because if they've got half a brain of reasonable logic, they'll figure it out and keep their mouth well and truly shut, which is one of the reasons I suspect the guy who came the other day just wasn't a pilot.
Well, everything that the flight training does and trains, and NASA quote is, it's a flat stationary plane that you consider is what you're navigating. See, and that's what the ballers have got to get back to with the double speak and rhetoric. So for all of the reference frames, what they've got to apologise to get things back to is basically a flat stationary plane that the aeroplane traverses. So it's all that mathematical jiggery pokery that makes them have these ridiculous, and let them have it, because they end up with ridiculous things like taking off at 700 miles an hour backwards. But all of those are consequences of trying to create that net zero, but those same dynamics as a flat stationary plane.
Any evidence of axial rotation of the Earth-based variety as we're talking about it?
Not that planes account for.
Could you repeat it, Nathan? I only heard it.
Any evidence of axial rotation of the Earth-based variety? We're talking about net force zero, which is a way to say that there is two things in play, Earth turning and motion above the turning Earth. From an anti-flat earther's point of view, they've got to try and get that to behave how it does behave when we point out Earth's not turning beneath stuff to cause 15 degrees an hour drift. So they've got to come up with an excuse to assume Earth's turning with no effect to observe. So they say whatever leaves Earth carries with it the velocity that Earth has given to it when it left the ground. So essentially, it's just remaining above the same spot. So if you jump up and down, you retain whatever 1,000 miles an hour you've got on the equator, and you just keep it, and then come back down on the exact same spot. In other words, Earth is assumed to be turning, and there's no effect to observe, says the anti-flat earther. We turn around and go, no, the globe claims that you'll have 15 degrees an hour drift as Earth turns beneath stuff, like gyroscopes and pendulums and bullets and footballs. That's what it's claimed to do by your high priests. The problem with that claim by your high priests and the globe is that would shorten flight times if Earth was turning underneath aeroplanes, as it is claimed to do.
And this is why you throw your high priests under the bus all the time. Very sad state of affairs. They're the ones running around teaching everybody this crap, but you throw them under the bus. Why? Because your claims don't hold up to snuff. I mean, it's unfortunate, but that's what it is.
Or maybe that'll be remedied for people who go against the science of a globe Earth by telling you that no, there's only one reference frame. Go around destroying the notion that there's two and drift at 15 degrees now. So someone like Dan should just be punished for going against globe rhetoric. You know, that sort of belief should be protected, really, for those who the ilk to go out and disagree with it by saying there's only one reference frame, like Simon Dan. I mean, what kind of an idiot would go against the globe claim in that way?
Well, we point out that flights east to west should be shorter. And our opposition say no, that flights east to west are maintaining the momentum of the rotation. But they claim linear, not angular. They don't even claim angular rotation, momentum conservation. And then they start talking about how it only happens, what they're trying to claim is Coriolis, the Coriolis effect, which is, as we termed, globiolis, only happens north to south. But as I pointed out, right, before, in the past, you take any flight going north to south, you get the average flight time and the average distance, or the distance and the average flight time. And there will be absolutely zero deviation. And as I said before, George Netchuk on Ranties proved this mathematically, that there was zero deviation, while trying to prove that there would be. They have absolutely zero. They have a claim. They have a claim that negates all east to west, west to east effect that we would see from the ground, and they try and then change that claim to a north-south claim, and then they have nothing to support that. When they use real-world flight times and an average flight speed, there is nothing. They have absolutely nothing. They have absolutely nothing. There is nothing that they have. I don't know how much to stress how little they have as an argument.
It was funny, like years ago, Planner World showed up here and wanted to tell us how flights west to east actually are faster. We were like, how does that work out exactly? Shouldn't they be faster the other way? Kind of hurting your own argument there, my friend.
Fiber8 says, can't wait to be locked up with Craig, Akumu Virus, and Ruhif in Guantanamo Bay, for denying quote-unquote science and infringing on the religious nature of that quote-unquote science. Thanks for the super chat, Fiber8. Really appreciate the support. Any evidence Any evidence of the distance to the sun?
Hang on. Chocolate, I think what they're trying to say is the airflow, the jet, what's it called? When the airflow is going
jet streams.
Yeah, jet stream. So we're going to have 860 miles an hour jet stream just to keep up with the Earth.
Imagine all of that going on while you're trying to just fly somewhere.
Yeah, it isn't. As you pointed out, Chocolate, the runway would be moving away from you if you're observing Coriolis drift at 15 degrees an hour from the ground, as is claimed on a globe Earth. That just means that as you're standing watching the plane seem to drift, that means that Earth's turning underneath the plane. The runway's moving away from the plane as it's trying to land on it. Yeah, no one's ever accounting for this. As you said, you've watched it. I used to work near an airport. I've seen it too. I've seen all the planes lining up to land after being in a holding pattern for whatever reason. Suddenly you got a queue of planes coming down in a massive straight line.
Yep, that spans for miles. And especially, and the beautiful thing is when it happens at night, you could just see the lights, or it looks like a highway in the sky.
Wait a minute,
it's
that's
actually
right.
crazy.
That's right. That's what I've been like for the past couple months. I've been paying attention because being in the Lower East Side area, I see a lot of sky traffic, and that's exactly what it is. Like I sat for an hour and watched these planes follow this particular line in space. Like it was as if there was a highway in the sky, and I'm like, wow, there's no, like, gee, the Earth is not moving. Just let it go, fam.
You used to work at these places, yeah? So, to me, I'm thinking you're talking about this runway moving. You really want to make sure that's an east-west alignment for that runway, because imagine if you've got it north-south, and as you're coming into land, The runway's going 1,000 miles an hour that way to the side. It'd be even harder to land.
Yeah.
Well, as you brought up earlier too, the whole they bring up conservation of angular momentum, like a helicopter taking off from the surface can't produce its own force to negate that.
Why wouldn't they claim orbital momentum?
Oh,
Why
right.
do they
So
go that
let me
way?
get it straight. So your drone takes off the ground, and if it's hovering an inch off the ground, it's perpetually falling in an orbital motion. I mean, that is their claim. Right. It's just at a higher height. But ultimately, that's what you'd have to be asserting.
Yeah, that's what they need to be asserting. They don't need to be saying angular. That's wrong.
They need to be saying orbital. No, when my plane takes off, it immediately goes into orbit, falling around the Earth at the same rate of the Earth. It's essentially geostationary, and the only thing that negates that is the engines. I mean, I'm giving you guys gold here. Technically, John is, but, you know, I'm polishing up that turd.
Well, that would not make the plane have to move a lot faster because, like the ISS is claimed to go around every 17 minutes or something around the globe Earth. So at what rate, you know, would a plane orbit?
Just told you, geosynchronous.
Yeah, but that means it's just moving at the same rate.
Isn't that what they need? Net force 0? We're giving them gold here.
Yeah, it's total nonsense.
I think
just the lad from Discord said they are not claiming the conservation of angular momentum. This is the most ridiculous part about it. They're claiming the conservation of linear momentum, the miles per hour thing, not an angular thing.
That's perfect.
We did angular last week, didn't we?
That's perfect though, because if you're claiming linear momentum, then you just got to hook it up to geodesics and space-time, and Bob's your uncle.
Yeah, just beg those 3 questions and you'll be fine.
I mean, have you guys ever seen the videos where the planes are trying to land and it's like insanely windy and the plane is just, it's struggling, like you could see it trying to land. And that's just because it's windy. But that's just because it's windy. Imagine now you're trying to negotiate that while the runway is moving away from you.
It wouldn't be the orbit of Earth would keep it at geosynchronous. It'd be in geosynchronous orbit. So yeah, that wouldn't be a problem.
Somebody from the chat was asking.
What about Top Gun?
Somebody from the chat earlier was asking if the piece from Berkeley is satire or not. We don't know is the honest answer. It's been speculated that it is satire, and my immediate reaction was, so what? The article's sentiment is that they're thinking about doing something anyway, therefore it generated a discussion, because obviously nothing's happening based on the information, even if it is correct, or satire. It makes no difference. But we don't know is the honest answer.
I've done a bit of research, Nath. I went and found that PBS account, checked the date and scrolled back to it. There is no matching tweet there, but as you say, as we said to Riff, it doesn't really matter. Look at it, because it's coming, boys. It's coming, because you're already trying it. You've already got your priest that you're denying, so it's coming. Somebody may be satirical, but satire is generally born from reality, people's observations of what's going off. So don't worry.
Yes, it's majoring on the minors. If you say, oh, God, you took this seriously. No, because there isn't anything to take seriously in it. If it's a postulation about what might happen. Yeah, just a discussion point that was developed from it, regardless of whether or not it's come directly from them or it's satire. It absolutely does not matter. Anyway, any evidence of a self-perpetuating molten iron core at the centre of a presupposed spherical Earth talking of satire?
On this question, are you going to give them R?
I do in the question, yeah.
Yeah, it's still stupid. No.
That's why I don't need to concern myself with the presupposition of R when you're talking about a molten iron core. It's got a lot more problems. Unless anybody disagrees. Anybody else hold that sentiment?
What's going on?
Go on, I have answers.
Yeah. Is my mic echoing?
Yeah, you sound good, whoever you are. Good to have you. Did you have something you wanted to answer?
You guys need to really reach real history.
I love it when someone's first opener is to tell us what we should be doing. We should be reading some history. What history should we be reading, according to you?
The original inhabitants of Europe was dark skin.
They come again?
The black people that ended up in West and South Africa, they migrated there.
Okay. Are you talking in code?
The flat earth debate, jerky.
Does this have some relevance to the subject we're discussing? Fascinating though it is.
If you guys can't understand that the fact that black people migrated to South Africa and that proves a globe, I don't know what I can say to you.
You're right, I've missed it. I've missed this
overload.
point completely, haven't I? I've been very silly. That is an excellent globe proof. Thank you.
Yeah, no way. No way.
Are you just muttering in disbelief there, Eli?
Of course.
Any scientific evidence of gravity?
Have you got a definition for mass yet? You'd have
I
to
think
start there, wouldn't you?
I think it started in South Africa.
I was about to start talking about the Spanish.
They don't even have a definition for gravity, Nathan. I spent like hours in with Jeremy last night and he would not define gravity. He said it was an acceleration. I was like, okay, well, we know forces cause acceleration. What force causes the acceleration that you call gravity? There was tumbleweed. Couldn't get him to define it for love nor money.
But it's really
Tell you
easy
what was interesting on that, Tony.
Hold on, just for the audience's benefit. I was going to drag it out, but I won't because I've got something to say. So the curving of pseudo-Riemannian force space, that's space-time. So the curving of space-time is the effect, that's gravity, the effect of bending space-time. And the cause, which they also have in Einsteinian mathematics, is the uneven distribution of mass. So to succinctly describe what gravity is, or to define gravity, it's the uneven distribution of mass causing the bending of space-time.
Yeah, they won't do it. They won't do it.
But that's what it is. What do you mean won't do it? That's what you're talking about. Anti-flat earthers here, in case anybody hasn't cottoned on. Yeah, they don't like the religion that they want to defend, so they won't define what is easily debunked because it's in a pseudo-force space-time that doesn't exist. Yeah, they don't want to define that. I mean, shocking. Go ahead, Adam. Sorry for the segue.
No, it's not. It actually validates the point. No, they won't, and they won't take it on. I saw a video last night, Tony, Everett Anderson, and instead of dealing with what Tony's talking about, and in the discussion with Jeremy, he's going on about density, changing the medium, and he starts, and I'm not good at English, he starts using the terms verb and adjective or whatever, and the point being, within what he's talking about, I understand what he's saying. You need to think of it, which is the verb, etc., etc. But instead of dealing with their real issue, which is what Tony's brought to him, they do a video on what's a verb and what's an adjective against Tony, yeah? Avoiding the actual topic, whether Tony's right or wrong, it doesn't matter, because what's within the topic, but what's important is whether or not, a bit like when I got you for getting the number of units in a thing wrong, just off the top of your head, you know what I mean? That's what becomes important, because, as we've been saying, they have no argument anymore. So that's all they can do, is run away and do a little bit on whether or not Tony's use of some of the words in English was correct, irrelevant to the point within physics that we've been made.
I choose to ignore everything Adam has said and focus on the fact that he said he doesn't speak English good, when he should have said, I don't speak English very well. Let's focus on that for a few moments, ignoring everything that he said. I'm just juxtaposing what they've done, by the way, in case you hadn't cottoned on.
But
I tell you what, I need to share this with you, right? One of the things that Jeremy actually admitted to, and I was gobsmacked, I was listening to, he was arguing with Jin CBR over a point. Doesn't matter what the point was, but he muted Jin CBR. And I said to him afterwards, I says, listen, Jeremy, you're muting him there. Isn't that the very criticism of Nathan that you guys apply? You insist that you can't go there because of Nathan's mute button. I said, you're doing the exact same thing. And he actually admitted that not only does he do it, that it is hypocritical, and I can view it that way. And I was like, my God, he's actually finally admitted something. But he admits that he uses the mute button to control the conversation.
Exactly, you know why he's done that, though?
That you do.
I don't know.
But he finds that acceptable.
Hold on. That's not what he's done. What he's done is, so far in this show, I've unmuted 3 people who've come into the server. That's what I've done so far. However, they want you to believe that I permanently mute people, when in reality, it's a very rare occurrence. People will come on the show, and if they literally cannot shut up to the point where no one can hear anything, I have to mute them. I've got no option. But you'll see me do it. So you'll see me go over to someone like this guy, 76 Digit, and click on them so that I can physically mute them. Now that you can visually see happening when it occurs, and it's not that often. But they, by getting you to admit, or getting him to say, yeah, I also mute randomly, totally unreasonably, just like Nathan. So he's got a comparison between him unreasonably muting somebody and me doing it. Hang on a second. That's not a fair comparison. What they do, and it's one of the reasons the show started in the first place, is mute you for totally unreasonable reasons. For instance, Kiwi gave an example only the other day, where he's in a discussion, somebody's claiming that they've got knowledge of his sealed military records, making up complete crap about him. When he goes to challenge the person on the nonsense they're making up about him, about his sealed records, he gets muted. Totally unreasonable. Now here, in a 2-hour discussion, we will listen to the same parroted nonsense for 2 straight hours from an opponent. Now, will I interrupt them to point out their contradiction, doublespeak and fallacy use? Oh, absolutely. But to them, me shutting down a fallacious argument by interrupting it is muting them, as opposed to going into the server and turning them off. That doesn't happen. Not here, but he's got a nice comparison where, what, the audience now thinks I do as he does, and just unreasonably mutes people because they don't like what they've got to say. No, that's not the case here. We listen to what people have got to say and then rip it to shreds while they try and talk through us.
Yeah, I spotted that as well in what Anthony said.
I think what Anthony is pointing out is that it's projection on their part.
I was talking.
Yeah, Brian.
Yeah. What you do, Nathan, is you mute funding muting. Majority of the time I've ever heard you muting anyone is because of their funding muting. And this started before you even started labeling it funding muting. So they weren't allowing conversations to happen because they were over-talking. They weren't allowing points to be made by over-talking. So you were muting the over-talking types. People who are trying to mute, basically stop the flow of information.
Yeah, but to be
fair,
stop someone's retort.
When somebody else is talking, they won't shut up. But when you then stop talking, they shut up.
To be fair, Jeremy was condoning what he does because he's trying to create the conversation. But when Nathan does it, it's not acceptable. And when I pointed out that it was hypocritical for him to take that position, he said, no, it isn't. Well, yeah, I can see how you would interpret it that way. But the reality is it is true. Nathan tries to simulate the conversation, and so does Jeremy. And Jeremy, it is hypocritical. But it's okay when Jeremy does it. It's not okay when Nathan does it.
Again, Anthony buying into the idea that I am completely comparable to how Jeremy mutes people. Right, thank you, Anthony.
No, Jim Panda mutes people to stop them talking. Nathan mutes people just to shut them up because they won't stop talking. Do you know what I mean? Over someone else.
Why I left last night, because he was muting me when I was trying to stop him from lying about me. He continuously misrepresents what I say. I'll say blue, and he'll regurgitate it back as red to his audience. I'll try interrupting that to say that's not what I said. You misquoted me, and he'll say stop me. He'll just mute me to stop me from interrupting, to stop the audience from here that he's being dishonest.
I think, Tony, Nathan's trying to say you should have showed him to shove it up his bum with his false equivalence.
Yeah, he is. But let's be honest. Let's call a spade a spade. It's the same crime, as it were.
No, I disagree.
Whoa.
I think Nathan's defending himself correct. The way you've just described what Jem Panda's doing is not what Nathan does. But Jem would happily allow you to equivocate the two behaviours, I think.
Exactly.
Right, and that's projection on their part because they're projecting what they're doing onto Nathan, which is not
Perfect. You
the
took
same
my
thing as
you
what
took my
they do.
conclusion, John. That was going to be my summary to the end of it. Precisely. They're projecting their ill or digressions, ill-mannered behaviour, bad behaviour, directly onto me. So when they come and say Nathan mutes everybody, that's projection. They mute people, but they hold up their opponent as doing what they do. Pure projection. It's the Hillary Clinton technique.
Yeah, it is pure projection.
Any single viable hypothesis from any of the fields of astronomy, cosmology, or astrophysics?
Oh,
Not
that was
yet.
another debate. That was another debate point. We spent about 40 minutes arguing how Right, I always get the words astrology and astronomy. I always get them mixed up in my head. I don't know why. I know the difference between them, but when I'm speaking it under pressure, I always get the wrong one. I always conflate them accidentally. And the minute I do, rather than just let it go so that we can address the point that's being made, they want to dwell on it as though every time you say astrology and you mean astronomy, it makes you sound retarded. Okay, I accept that. But what about the point I've made about it, which is that it's not science, it's pseudoscience, both of them. They're both pseudoscience. What about that point? They don't want to talk about that. They just want to say, you don't understand the difference.
Hang on. I don't agree with that.
made a video on that then, Tony.
I don't agree with that.
Astronomy.
Hold on. Well, number one, the way I remember them is, although it's not the etymology, normally I try and remember it as naming stuff, because that's basically all it is, coming up with stories, naming stuff in the sky. So astro naming, no, that's not the etymology. But logic is the etymology of astrology. It's the logic of the sky, as opposed to just giving stuff names. Yeah? So the names are kind of set in stone in a way in terms of what they're just describing. They're just describing the shapes the lights make to give you an idea of which bit they're pointing at, nothing more. But that's just the logic of the movements. Now, don't get me wrong, that description is not the current description of astrology, and I understand that. It's been demonized, but that's all it is. So that's how I get the comparison between the two. But as you're trying to point out, they'll major on the minors because you've messed up one word and said astronomy when you mean to say how the lights are moving, or how Mystic Meg said something, if you're using the current day explanation for what astrology is. They'll focus on that rather than the point you make about it not being science. My objection comes because astrology, is anybody claiming it to be science? Because if not, it's not pseudoscience.
Well, they claim it's pseudoscience.
What is pseudoscience?
Astrology claim.
Hold on, Neil. Hold on, Brian. Did you just ask what is pseudoscience, Neil?
Yeah, in astronomy, why is it pseudoscience? I want Anthony to explain.
Well, pseudoscience is a non-adherence to the scientific method, as Anthony explained earlier. But as astronomy
with the mistaken belief that it's science.
Correct. But astronomy is most definitely asserting that. You know, statements from people like deGrasse Tyson has been in the past, it's science whether you like it or not, or science is right whether you like it or not, which in and of itself isn't an untrue statement, but he's associating that with his field. So it is we don't have to go far to give examples of how astronomy is claimed to be science. It is.
I don't think astrology is, though.
No, that's why I objected.
Well, then, right.
That's what I was trying to clear up.
Yeah, but do you not remember the likes of, I can't remember the famous card readers, but those people that read cards and do like star sign predictions and all that kind of stuff, they make a living out of what they call, they would consider that to be science.
Are they calling it science, though?
That's what I'm trying to clear up. I actually know about this stuff. No, officially, astrology officially claims, and I'm involved in it, claims it to be a pseudoscience. They do not claim science.
Hang on, that doesn't make sense either.
Claim a pseudoscience.
You can't claim yourself to be pseudoscience, right? That's a contradiction in terms. You can't come up with a story or an explanation for something that hasn't been validated, and then say this is a pseudoscience, right? Pseudo has a meaning. Now, pseudo four-space geometry, for example. Pseudo-geometry, right? Now, we all know what pseudo means. Fake, sham, not real, right? But pseudoscience also has a specific definition. So you can't call yourself pseudoscience because that's a tacit acceptance that you're not claiming to be science. So if anything, if you incorrectly define yourself as pseudoscience, you're as far removed from pseudoscience as you could be at that stage, because you're acknowledging that you're not science, and pseudoscience is a claim of science where one doesn't exist.
Yeah, but I see the problem happened. The reason that it ended up being claimed to be a pseudoscience is because astronomy is claimed to be a science, and so to make the distinction between the two.
Astronomy.
So they wouldn't get all.
So
they
it's
wouldn't
the
mix people up.
I've followed you now. So you're saying the bastards who come up with the naming of shit and call themselves science want to decry something that hasn't necessarily even called itself science. It's just the logic of the movements. But they need to be put down and demonized and turned into tarot readers and called pseudoscience, even though in reality that is also projection. The ones who are actually claiming to be science, therefore by definition pseudoscience, point at the opponent who's just logging the movements and call them pseudoscience. Pure projection.
I've got it here. I've done a quick Google search, right? And that's exactly correct. So they're setting you up for this. So is astrology considered a science? Astrology has not demonstrated its effectiveness in controlled studies and has no scientific validity, and thus regarded as pseudoscience, which I think is false in terms of an assumption, unless it's making the claim. But what's nice then next, look, is they set you up with the old okey doke chart. Astrology is not considered as a science. Astronomy is a science which is used in astrology. Astronomy deals with the movements of various stars and planets. It is taught as science subject, as a branch of mathematics. Now, if that's not an okey doke, I don't know what is.
It is taught as science as a branch of mathematics.
It is taught as a science subject, as a branch of mathematics, yeah.
Oh my God.
I'll put it on screen so you can actually bloody see that. It's shocking.
Yeah.
Sounds like a violation of the law of non-contradiction to me.
Absolutely. But that's the truth. And that's always going to be the case with anything heliocentric. And astronomy is most definitely a heliocentric pastime.
Yeah, because I was asked to explain, why is it the case that people that are skilled in astronomy, why is it that they're allowed to call themselves science if what you say is correct? And I said, well, look at Professor Danny Faulkner. He considers himself to be a scientist. He considers himself to be doing science, and he holds a PhD in astronomy, apparently. Given that that is on face value true, which for the purposes of this we are accepting that it's true, it means that, is it likely, given that you can't teach pseudoscience in the national curriculum, that something that is declared pseudoscience by definition will then get taught, or will it get removed from the national curriculum because it's no longer science? Because in this instance, Jeremy brought up an article that said that New Earth creationism, I think he said, was pseudoscience, and it's not allowed to be taught in schools. Okay, so if astronomy is then considered pseudoscience because it's not science when it purports to be, then that must also be banned too, because if you're going to ban one topic for being pseudoscience, you've got to ban them all, surely. And he didn't like that. He said that was being ridiculous.
Are you saying that creationism is not allowed to be taught in school because it's pseudoscience? What?
I'm saying that Jeremy says that. That was Jeremy's claim.
Shout out to Chronicles of the Uncovered and Convinced, sorry. Wonderful show as always. Thank you very much for the super chat. Sorry to interrupt you, Arwin.
You always need to do that, don't you, Nathan?
My bad.
I've never heard of it before. I was taught about creation in school in just like a Bible class thing. Right now, this new Earth creation, I don't know what that is.
I don't know what it is.
But is that really relevant to just like creation versus evolution teaching in school? I mean, you don't teach an entire religion in school. I get that. But just creation as an opposition of evolution seems very reasonable to me, and I do think it's still out there. So
yeah, and that very reasonableness is justified for one of the reasons for which you can teach New Earth creation, because it says in the national curriculum that you must follow this national curriculum unless there is a good reason not to. So if you've got a good reason not to follow the national curriculum, that means that you can depart from it and you can talk about New Earth creationism if that is a good reason. I don't even know what it is. I was just arguing the advocate position. But my point was that what he considers to be pseudoscience if you were to apply that to astrology or astronomy, either, both, or, then they're not going to be allowed to be taught in schools, are they? And how many things are taught in school as science when we all know that they're not?
Astronomy is not taught in school.
Hold on, just one second.
Before, just on the New Earth business.
I think you're going to do what I was going to do anyway.
And Young Earth. Young Earth is like still Ball Earth, but 6,000-year-old Ball Earth, as far as I'm aware how it's applied. And then the only times I've been New Earth is like the New Earth out post like apocalypse, Return of Christ. That's New Earth. But the only other one I know is Young Earth, which is like say it's a perversion of a conflation of Ball Earth and biblical timelines.
But they also adhere to. But they also adhere to one of the
Earth is a ball.
They also adhere to one of the ontological primitives that we also adhere to. They just have a timeline and a Ball Earth.
It didn't matter. It doesn't matter what the definition is, and it doesn't matter how I understand it or don't understand it. I was arguing just the advocate position, the opposing position, that was basically, if you're going to say that this particular topic is pseudoscience, that would explain why people like Dr. Danny Faulkner with his astronomy PhD will never admit that their PhD is pseudoscience, because it would then exclude them from teaching their believed science discipline in a context of school.
Right.
They would never ever do that.
Or just teaching it generally. I mean, that's why someone like Prof. Phil Bell hangs around here, because we directly threaten that, don't we?
He's just an idiot.
Yeah, an idiot living in fear of his credibility and legacy being absolutely destroyed by what we point out as wrong in their dissemination of information that up until we were around was taken as read to be correct. And was to be taken as read. What he says as a professor is to be considered correct. He's science. We come along and suddenly we take that away from them.
What do you think Danny Faulkner's doing? The same thing. He's concerned.
What have you got up, Anthony?
It's a good justification, that, Nathan. They're basically here spending that time because they know they're going to end up losing their legacy.
That's what I say to him, very specifically, to Phil Bell. Yeah, I chuckle too when I say it in chat. He doesn't know I'm sat chuckling while I type that, but now he does.
That's a melon messer. I like it.
Yeah, and he knows it.
What are the... Danny Faulkner's doing the same thing. He's always lurking in 24/7 from the sources I know that are there. He wrote a book. He claimed, if I'm quoting him right, he can answer any questions, and he's never lost to a flat earther, something to that effect. Can someone quote him properly there, if I haven't?
I haven't found anything that I've been unable to refute.
I have all the answers.
That started off. That was.
I have the answers.
Rewind. There was a bit before that. So he basically gives the sentiment that flat earthers come across this information and it seems legit, because they haven't got any way of debunking it. They just go onto Google and look it up and can't find an answer to what seems like a good flat earth argument. Well, they haven't come to me. I have the answers. There's never been a flat earth question that I haven't been able to refute. Right, fast forward from there to a flat earther standing at a flat earth conference asking him how you have gas pressure without a container, and he does a little Google search and comes across blue marbles to a container example. And
No. That's not what happened. He asked him, how do you have gas pressure without a container? And he sat there like a bunny in the headlights and he froze. When under pressure, when challenged, there was a question that he was unable to refute. He literally did nothing. It was many weeks later when he found the video on Google.
You prompted that question, didn't you?
Yeah, but he went on to his interview on the radio that he did, the interview that we quote. I'll dig it out if I have to for the after show. He specifically notes that flat earthers just do a Google search and can't find the answer. So he's noting the sort of ineptitude of flat earthers who just do a quick cursory Google search. And then he did exactly that.
What's worse?
That's the best part.
One chop.
Yeah, that he posted.
No. I was just going to say that's the best part. That you said, oh, you poor guys, you just go on Google and do a little search or YouTube or whatever. And then that's literally what he does. especially with a video that we've had already seen, pulled apart, made fun of already. Like, it's hilarious that he actually chose that.
Exactly.
I don't want to set up a false dichotomy for him, but it does leave him with that premise that he did exactly that. He didn't watch the video. He just did a quick Google search and sent it to somebody. Or he did watch the video with all of the containers in there and entropy taking place so that there was an equalization of gas pressure, and still, against all his proposed background in science, still came to the conclusion that that was an example. I don't know which is worse.
No, it's the former. I'm almost certain it's always projection. You know, people who basically don't really know a great deal about flat Earth but feel that their general knowledge is good enough will immediately go forth and say, everybody else would just do a quick wiki search. Oh, really? So you mean you've done a quick Google search and you happen to know the answer to the question that came up first that was put to you by a flat earther. Therefore, you know better than the entirety of everybody on the internet, and they just haven't come to you. And then when push comes to shove, you do precisely what you've criticised others for not doing because you haven't done it. And there you are, tap, tap, tap into Google. There's blue marble. There is gas pressure without a container. It literally was the words I typed in. That's got to be good enough.
And even worse than that is the guy who made the video is running around afterwards asking people, asking people, please give me a citation that a pipe is a container.
I got worse. I led him beautifully in a few chats. I've still got the screenshots where he literally says, quote, show me a citation that says an open container is a container, end quote.
I'm not finished here. I still think, Nath, if what you're saying is he's typed in to Google gas pressure without a container, that means he believes that there's things out there that are demonstrable other than he's looking up to the sky as his proof. He actually believes it's all there and it's real, it's plausible. You can have this contradiction. Otherwise, why do the search and just accept the first thing happily, randomly? You have to have some false belief that actually is plausible. Therefore, a complete denial of natural law, yeah? So...
Hey, Nathan, I have a citation that an open container is a container. It's my source is Danny Faulkner. The reference is the thread that you had with him, and he described open container. So that he would be the reference in that particular.
So he specifically says in that video there is an open container.
Well, no, in his question to you, asking you for a citation, he said, show me that an open container is a container.
So he could literally be the citation for the guy whose video he chose to use to prove that premise. Right. Isn't that adorable?
Sure. Is an open Coke can and Coke can.
Nope. Let's not descend this into the absurd right at the end of the live show, because I'm going to thank first and foremost both Discord and G+ panels for making today's live show possible. Stay tuned if you're watching on either Nathan Oakley 1980 or Nathan Oakley premiering streams, as there will be an after show to follow. Another massive thank you to today's live audience for smashing the super chat, liking, commenting, sharing, subscribing, all that good stuff. Once again, stay tuned if you're watching on either premiering stream. I've been Nathan Oakley, and I will see you all in the next video.
What a lovely day!